Welcome back, DCS Hacks fans. This is Cabi 599 for Garf. We got together and decided that we wanted to do a little instructor pilot series for you guys for formation basics. It's going to be about a 5, maybe 6 chapter breakdown as far as the basics for doing the formation. And today we're going to be Dragon 5-5 flight is our call sign. We'll be flying the F5s on DCS. If you're wondering why the O is missing in Dragon, it's because the traditional military call signs are 5 letters long. And when you add the word flight at the end, it tells the air traffic controllers that we are a formation of at least 2 aircraft. Okay? But we could literally be a formation of 4, where Dragon 5-5 lead and number 2 are the lead element, and Dragon 5-5 3 and 4 are the second element. As a matter of fact, the number 3 ship is the leader to the number 4 ship. Okay, so that's what basically we're going to be covering today, and we'll be only flying 2 ship today, myself and Garf in the number 2 ship. Okay, here's the pre-brief and what we're going to cover in this chapter. First, responsibilities, then the contract, radio and comm basic procedures, engine start, taxiing, runway lineup, run them up, as in run the engines up, and then brake release, to include a wing takeoff on the demo today, but we could also be doing an interval takeoff, which I'll cover just briefly. Number 1, responsibilities. Everybody has responsibilities, but the leader has the majority of them. So lead gets to do all the communicating, coordinating with air traffic control, clearing for the formation for safety's sake, making the majority of the decisions, as well as resource management for that formation, doing the navigation, and maintaining safety of flight for the formation. Whereas number 2, or the wingman, is just supposed to be there in the correct position, deconflicting him or herself so as not to hit the leader, and being mutual support for the leader and the formation as a whole. Okay? So, as a wingman, just be there. What is the contract? This is what we use as far as kind of our standards of what we're going to do during the flight. So unless the leader directs otherwise, the contract today will be all rejoin airspeeds will be 350 knots indicated airspeed. All turning rejoins will be at 30 degrees of bank. All turns will be a maximum of 60-degree bank turns at 2 Gs, unless we're doing wing work or close trail, extended trail, which we'll cover in another chapter. And if you lose sight, that is if the wingman loses sight of the leader, be sure to call blind the heading that you're on and the altitude that you're at, so that the leader can deconflict and specify what heading he or she wants you to be on and altitude separation, what altitude to be at. And then the leader may direct different orbits, meaning the wingman may be doing counterclockwise orbits while the leader is doing clockwise orbits, while they're about 500-foot separation, so that they can stay safe and then find each other. Occasionally, you might have to send the wingman to a specific geographical point on a map or over the ground. And then that point, you'll try to rejoin the formation. During any maneuvering, there will be no over-the-top maneuvers, as in loops or clover leafs or anything like that, unless we happen to be doing extended trail. And we'll get into that on another chapter. What about radio and comm basics? The big thing about radio and comm basics is minimize the chatter. Okay? You'll probably hear the leader calling out check. What that means is check in. So the wingmen will check in with their position. So Garth will be the number 2 position, so you'll hear him just calling out 2. If you have a 4 ship, it could be 2, 3, 4, like that. All right. If the leader calls go to a channel or go to a frequency, then the wingmen will acknowledge with their position, 2, 3, 4. If the leader says push, that means they're going to do this quietly and the wingmen will not respond, but they will automatically change to that channel or frequency. If the leader calls out the term stud, that's also the same thing as saying channel. So if you hear him say go stud 2, he's saying the same thing as go to channel 2. The appropriate wingman responses for their position would be just 2 or 2's ready, depending on if we're waiting to find out if the wingman is ready to say take off or release brakes. And also 2's in if we're doing some maneuvering like extended trail and close trail for another chapter. Okay, the wingman, or I should say, is can also say lead push it up during the takeoff, as in go faster, add more power, or lead pull it back, go slower because you're outrunning me, basically. Lead, you're on fire. If the leader's on fire during takeoff, please feel free to let us know. And during the fence check, if you don't know what fence stands for, it's basically checking your fuel, engines, needles or nav equipment, your comm equipment, and also any other equipment you may have on board, to include your weapons. Okay, and normally when you do a fence check, the wingmen with their position will tell the leader what their fuel amount is, and in this case, in the F5, it'll be in thousands of pounds of fuel. 2 can also call out breaking out, as in leaving the formation for safety reasons. And if you happen to be going through weather and the wingman loses sight of the leader, it's appropriate for the wingman to call 2's lost wingman, and there is a completely separate set of procedures for a lost wingman, which we will not cover in this chapter. Also, once you've separated, say from a breakout, it'll be 2 has lead in sight, request rejoin, or if you happen to be a 4 ship and number 4 breaks out from number 3, number 4 would say 4 has 3 in sight, request rejoin. And also when you reach Joker or Bingo fuel, 2 is Joker or 2 is Bingo. Joker is essentially a few hundred pounds predetermined prior to Bingo, which Bingo is actually the fuel state that you need to go home so that you have enough fuel to get home. Okay. Last but not least, if lead calls out to sweep ATIS, that means to go listen to the ATIS for the airfield that you're going to, and then either come back to the frequency or go to whichever frequency or channel that the lead pushes you onto. Okay? Engine start. During engine start, first the leader, or I should say the formation, should be listening up to the ATIS first, and then once you have the ATIS, normally the lead will call to check in for the formation, basically asking during this check-in, he's really asking, are you ready to start engines? Okay, and when the wingman responds 2 or 2's ready, or 2 may need a few minutes, okay, you can also say that, but once 2 acknowledges, lead will get the clearance for the formation and also clearance to start engines, and then he'll call out start them up over the radio if you cannot see each other. And since we're on DCS and it's hard to see thumbs up or head nods, we're just going to do it all radio, over the radio style. So then lead checks in the formation, essentially asking if they're ready to taxi after the engine start. And if 2 is ready to taxi, it'll be just 2 or 2's ready. And if needs a few minutes, it'll be 2 needs however many mics, which means minutes, by the way. Then at that point, lead will request taxi, and both of you will taxi as a formation. Speaking of taxiing, as you taxi, aircraft normally stagger taxi, meaning one aircraft is on the left side, one aircraft is on the right side of the taxi line. During a stagger taxi, you want to try to put one of your main wheel on the yellow taxi line, and when you are in this staggered position, then you can maintain essentially one ship length's distance from each other as far as the number 2 and or 3 or 4. If you are taxiing on top of the yellow line with the nose wheel, then you need at least 2 ships distance between the aircraft so that you don't just pump exhaust fumes into your wingman behind you. And of course, be careful where you point your exhaust and how much thrust you're putting out, because you could blow people over and or vehicles for that matter. All right, how about when you're clear for takeoff? Runway lineup basics. Essentially, the leader will generally try to stay on the downwind side, if there's a crosswind, that is, on the downwind side of the runway half. Okay? Otherwise, if that's not really a player, then the leader will generally line up on the side to the outside of the first turn. In other words, after the formation takes off, if the first turn happens to be a right turn, the leader will line up on the left-hand side so that the wingman can rejoin to the inside of the turn, which gives him some advantage to easily get back into position. The wingman lines up on the 30-degree fingertip line, which we'll discuss in the next chapter. And of course, you stay on your side of the center line and treat the center line like a brick wall. Should look something like this. So if on this left diagram for the 2 ship, if the winds were coming from our left, the leader should line up on the right. Or if the winds aren't really a player, then if the formation needs to make a right-hand turn after the takeoff, then the leader should line up on the right-hand side, or vice versa if they're going to make a right-hand turn. Okay, run them up. Once you're on the runway, typically the wingman would give a head nod to the leader, but that's hard to do in DCS. So we're going to do everything over the radio. And so when the wingman is in position and lined up, ready to run the engines up, he'll just call ready, 2's ready. And then lead will give the signal to run it up. Traditionally, you would run it up to mill power, 100%, but not into afterburner. When the wingman is ready to release brakes to take off, he or she will make the call 2's ready again, meaning that they are ready for takeoff. And then lead traditionally would give a head nod, but over the radio you would just give the call release brakes, slight pause, ready now. And then both of you release brakes and go right into the afterburner. Okay, takeoffs. Today the demo is going to be a wing takeoff, which means we're going to take off together. And on the wing takeoff, you treat the center line like a brick wall. Do not cross the center line during a wing takeoff. And you reference the leader to know when to start rotating the nose up and also when to raise the gear and flaps. If we did a interval takeoff, traditionally that would be 10 seconds. In other words, the wingman would have the power up to mill, let the leader take off and then 10 seconds later he or she would take off and then rejoin the formation after that. We are not going to demo that in this chapter. So what does that all look like? Here we go into DCS.
Nellis Air Force Base Information Papa, time 2200 Zulu. Current ceilings view at 8,000, visibility greater than 10 miles. Winds, 240 at 5, altimeter 2993. Runway 21 ILS in use. Advise you have information Papa.
Dragon flight check. 2. Ground Dragon 55 flight clearance on request, ready, copy.
Dragon 55 is cleared to Nellis Air Force Base as followed via the Dream 7 departure. Runway heading to 10,000, expect 17,000 5 minutes after departure. Contact departure control on 350.225, squawk 4400.
Dragon 5-5 flight on Dream 7 departure 10,000. Expect 17,000 after 5 minutes. Departure on 350225 squawk 4400. We have information Papa for the engine start.
Dragon 5-5, read back correct, engine start approved.
Chief, connect ground air supply. Copy. Ground air supply is now connected. Chief, apply ground air supply. Copy. Air is now applied. Chief, apply ground air supply. Copy. Air is now applied. Chief, disconnect ground air supply. Copy. Ground air supply is now disconnected.
Dragonfly check.
Engine ready.
Ground Dragon 5-5 flight to 2 taxi with the numbers.
Dragon 5-5, taxi to runway 21 left.
Dragon 5-5. Dragonflight, go stud 2. Dragonflight check. Power Dragon 5-5 flight number 1.
Dragon 5-5 flight, hold short.
Dragon 5-5 flight, hold short.
Dragon 5-5 flight, winds are 240 at 5, clear for takeoff, change to departure.
Dragon 5-5 flight, clear for takeoff. Push stud 3. Dragonfly, check.
2's ready.
Dragonflight, run them up.
Two's ready.
Let's release brakes. Ready now. I added this wide angle view so you guys can watch the same takeoff and see what the stick movements are that Garf has. He was a little bit late adding in his afterburner, so he sort of fell behind on the initial brake release. But the one thing he did do is once he lifts off, he gets the gear up immediately, and once the undercarriage goes up, it just accelerates real quickly, and he was able to get back into position. Here's the rotation. He's clear in the air and his gear's up, and he's getting the flaps up there and accelerating, and I'm just getting my gear up now, which allows him to get back into position into what we call a root position, which is slightly wider than a fingertip that we normally would fly later on. And that ends our chapter 1, but the next chapter will add some more things to check out on as far as positioning and how to cross under and how to break out and things like that, okay? But for now, how about you guys give Garfy here a like and a subscribe and help him out. And we'll see you on the next chapter. Don't forget,